the scenario we're going to work through is we've just got ewes at the point of lambing, and we're going to take them out of a containment feeding area and put them into a paddock with pasture. So the easiest way to do that is we previously entered a mob which we were feeding in the containment area. That mob hasn't changed, so what we're going to do is select that mob on the app, and we've got the option to either view or edit that mob or to clone it, and we're going to clone it. So I'm going to click clone. So all the details of that mob come up, but I need to give it a different name now. So instead of it being U, I'm going to call it U1, just for the ease of putting a name down. And I'm going to change the livestock class from last month of pregnancy twin lamb to first month of lactation twin lamb. I'm also going to change their live weight. They were 60 kilos while they were in late pregnancy. They've had their lambs, and I've weighed the ewes, and I estimate them to be 50 kilograms live weight. The feeding period will still be 30 days, and we've now got to change the start date because it is now the 3rd of January. So I'm going to click the start date. I'm going to change that to January, Friday 3rd of January, and go done. So now it gives us the end date of the 2nd of February 2020. Now I'm going to go next. So we're taking those animals out of the containment area, and it's saying, do we have pasture available? Yes, we do. So I click yes. And you'll notice up the top of the screen that pasture is highlighted green, so we know where we're located. The first thing that we can see is View Pasture Guide. I'm just going to click on that. This View Pasture Guide is a very important document that we recommend everyone read because it gives some information about the inputs that you're about to enter into the app. It also talks about ProGraze, which is a course that has been run in New South Wales and across Australia for a number of years, and we highly recommend undertaking this course because this app is built on a lot of the principles from ProGraze, and you'll get a much deeper understanding of how to use the app and how to better manage your livestock with pasture. I'm not going to go into the detail. I'm just going to click the cross on the top right hand corner to close it and go back to the pasture screen. So the first thing it's asking us is to set the paddock size, and when I select that, you'll notice there's two options. We can select a paddock less than 20 hectares or greater than 20 hectares. And I'm, in this case, going to select a paddock less than 20 hectares. And the reason that we have those different sizes of paddocks, it's to account for the energy that the animal uses when they're grazing. And it's really a bit of a guide. So in some cases, you might have paddocks larger than 20 hectares, but the animals aren't having to move very far to graze or forage because they're staying close to water, and the pasture quality could be relatively good. So you might think, well, I'm going to select a paddock less than 20 hectares because they're going to be using less energy to forage. The next thing that it's asking us is to set the digestibility of the pasture. And when we select it, we have two options. We can select temperate pastures or tropical pastures. As a general rule, temperate pastures are in the regions which have winter rainfall areas, and tropical pastures are generally summer rainfall dominant areas. In this case, I'm going to select temperate because I'm down the south of the state, and click next. And the first thing you see is a graph, and you can move around the graph, and we can see that when a pasture is short and actively growing, its digestibility is about 75%. As it grows and matures, the digestibility falls to down to 45% digestible. Where we touch on that graph, we'll select the quality of the feed that the pasture is. So you look at the graph and you think, okay, well, what's our pasture look like? Is it actively growing? In this case it is, because it's at the end of the autumn break and we've had germination of pasture. So I'm going to select active growth green. And when I do that, we can see that 75% digestible appears up the top left of the screen, and I'm going to click save. The next thing we have to enter is the pasture height and density. Now, pasture height and density interact to affect how much pasture or food is available on offer to the animals. So the first thing it's asking us is what is the average height across the paddock of the pasture. So in this case, it's short and it's just started growing, and it's about 2 centimetres high. Now, you'll notice that the upper limit is 9 centimetres in height, and the reason that we only go to 9 centimetres is for sheep. Anything taller than 9 centimetres doesn't impact on how much they can bite off in a day or their intake. For cattle, there is a slight increase over 9 centimetres, but it's not enough to, their intake isn't going to increase that much more above 9 centimetres. The next thing it's asking us is to set the pasture density. So what we've got is between 5% and 100%. At the low end, 5%, that would be like the odd plant and the odd leaf on a plant. So it's really low density. There's a lot of bare ground and there's not many leaves on the plants. Right up to the other end, which is like a lush lawn, where you have really dense leaves and really dense plants together, no bare ground. So in this case, we're going to say we've had a germination of, let's say, barley grass, and there's a density of about 80%. There's very little bare ground, and it's really sort of dense germination of seed. And by adjusting the height and density, we now see that it's calculated the food on offer for us at approximately 500 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. And now we select save, and it returns us back to the pasture screen. We've entered our paddock size, we've selected our digestibility, and we've selected our height and density. And the app is now telling us that those ewes in the first month of lactation are going to eat approximately 680 grams a head per day of pasture, and that pasture is actually only going to meet about 38% of their nutritional needs. So it's telling us we're going to need to add a supplement. So I'm going to just now click Add Supplement. And because we've cloned this mob, and previously we were feeding him in a containment area a mix of barley and pit silage, it's now calculated how much of those two feeds we would need to supplement to meet those animals' needs. But because they're out on pasture, we've decided we don't really need to feed them the silage. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to scroll down to the bottom of the page to view and edit feed, and then I'm going to select edit, and I'm going to now delete the pit silage from the supplement. And so you can see I'm going to click the little cross, and I've now deleted that. Then I've got to follow the instructions. It says click next. So it brings me back to the compare table where barley is by itself. You'll notice there is now a warning, and the warning appears lactating animals need 10 to 20% of their diet as roughage, i.e. hay, straw or silage. Well, in this case they're out on pasture, so we don't have to take note of that warning. I select barley to feed, click save, and now it tells us to supplement those lactating ewes on that short pasture. We're going to need to supplement them with 1.2 kilograms of barley per head per day, 300 for the mob per head per day, and now we've calculated our supplement. If we want to, we can now go and calculate our feed out. So I'll do that again very quickly. So the feeding frequency, we're going to feed them every 3 days. I'm going to whack 3. So that's saying we calculate 900 kilos, and the flow rate was 160 kilos a minute coming out of our feed trailer. So we're going to have to feed or trail feed for 5 minutes and 38 seconds, and we're done. I'll click save, and now we've entered the supplement. And if we want to, we can now go and view the summary, which means it's going to cost us 36 cents per head per day to supplement those lambing ewes. bit under $11 for the month of supplementation, and we're going to need 9 tonnes of barley. Done. When I click done, instead of returning us to the home page, it returned us to the view, edit or clone page, because that's where we started off from when we selected this mob. So to go back to the home page, I just click the little cross in the top right hand corner, and that will now bring us back to the home page, where we will now see both our mobs. We've got the mob called U, which was fed in the containment area. Now we've got the mob called U1, which we've put out into the pasture.